I want to start with a conversation that is an old conversation. It goes back generations and stuff, and it goes back from Bill Cosby to Richard Pryor to even Black Men Screaming doing a segment on it 15 years ago, and that's the use of the N word. And so I want to get your thoughts on that because the argument has always been that we have found a way to redeem it. And I wonder, is that possible to redeem a word such as that? So anyone that wants to start the conversation.
Oh, yeah, I'll go. When you talk about redeem a word, to me, when I think of redeem, it's like when you do something bad and like you kill somebody and you redeem yourself. To me, the word, I look at it as, giving it meaning. There's so many words in the English vocabulary or whatever. And so by giving it meaning and allowing it to like represent you, that's how it gives them power. And so if you take away the meaning of the word, that word has no substance to it. The reason why it has substance, because for all the existence of that word, we allowed it to hinder us and hurt us. Like for prime example, I don't believe in curse words. The reason why? Because if you look at certain dictionaries of curse words, it has nothing to do with being a curse word. Like the B word, that's a female dog. The F word, that means to smite, to tap softly. So again, it goes back to giving it meaning, like having other people giving it meaning and letting it like represent us, which it doesn't represent us. You see where I'm coming from with that?
This is a very good topic, and I'll tell you why I love this topic. I can look at it from both sides, and I will start by saying that I'm biased. I'm biased, but I also suffer from PTSD, and that comes from me growing up in public schools. And what it has to do with the fact that I can vividly remember teachers grilling me in the hallway. Literally, before they even say good morning, teachers that I don't even know running down the hallway and asking me, who said that? Who said that? And antagonizing me and giving me a lengthy history of what they believed was the history of the N word. One, as if I didn't know it already. Two, honestly, as if I cared.
Mm.
And three, um, imposing their judgment on me. And for me, I carry a chip on my shoulder about the word because, first and foremost, growing up where I grew up on 183rd in the Bronx, a 90s kid by all accounts, hanging out with my friends, there was never any malice in the word when we use it, when I talk to my friends and etc. I'm not even going to go to the capitalist society of integrating the word into music. Forget that, or television per se. Just in our daily lives, there was never any malice in the word. I was fully cognizant of where the word came from, although no one can pinpoint an origin of who actually created the word. We had versions of the word already in Africa long before it was utilized to demean Black people within America. So you had different spellings of it, but it didn't mean what it meant in America. And for me, I look at it the same way you just said, Brother Ishmael, giving that word power. Because it's a man-made word, I feel that that word can change over time. At one point in time, when you go back not too long ago, bad meant good. That was
Yeah.
bad, right? And so I think that as humans, we evolve, we can change the meaning of words, we can adapt, and we do it with just about, not even just about, we do it with so many other words. Why is this one particular word so why are we holding on as tight as we can to the original meaning and connotation, as if we can't change it. There's so many other things that we have changed over time, but this we just won't let go. When I say we, I don't mean us as Black folks. I mean someone, some entity. There's someone that is hanging on to this with dear life. And the other thing is giving power over you to somebody else. If you let someone call you the N-word, and that is enough to trick you out of your position, whether you're a father who was supposed to be going home, but now you're willing to sacrifice your family and everything you have to get into it with somebody else, get into it with someone because of where they called you, whether you're a mother, regardless of who you are, don't let anyone trick you out of your position.
I'm sorry, go ahead, brother.
So, you know, for me, I feel like if someone I feel like the word can change. I feel like we change language all the time, and I don't see why this word is any different.
Well, I mean, me being older than you brothers, I come from it with a different perspective on what it means. You know, James Baldwin talked about, I'm not your Negro. And the reason why that word is so offensive to some of us older people is because James Baldwin is telling you, I'm not the person that you use that word for in your imagination. You created that word in your imagination, and that means something to you. And so I'm not going to allow you to identify me as that particular person. I tell people, I remember, again, y'all are too young to know about this. I remember what busing was going on. And when I was on the bus and I had a whole neighborhood with bats and sticks trying to turn the damn bus over. And the first thing they were shouting out of their mouths was the N-word. So for me, coming from a different perspective and a different experience, right? You know, because we're not talking about book racism. I'm talking about experiential racism that I know what it is.
Right.
But I don't. But I get what, you know. I like what Tupac I do, because when Tupac did that back in the day, when he tried to change the quote unquote word around, and I think it meant never ignorant getting goals accomplished. When he tried to use it, I respected that. But you have to understand, coming out of those experiences and understanding what it meant when you see European faces using it. There's no way in my conscious mind, from my experience, to be able to redeem it.
Right, definitely, and I see your point, but I think there's a disconnect with our generation and your generation. It's like you pass your trauma onto our trauma to us. I haven't experienced that. I don't know if Paul experienced that kind of, you know, racism where you're on a bus and they call you the N-word. We've never experienced that, and you play an important role because you tell us that narrative, that what happened to you. And so we helping us to understand what you dealt with, but at the same time, we can understand. But at the same time, we could say, hey, just to let you know that's not our trauma. But what we can do is we can relate, we can understand your story and what you've been through. And through that, we can change that meaning and have it something positive, or just completely take the word out of the vernacular. But that's not going to happen because we use it subconsciously. Like I use it. I'm a hypocrite. I use it when I'm with my boys. I'll say, "What's up?" And so it's never going to go away. But again,
you know what it is though. That I guess maybe for some of us older brothers might be that when we're in your presence, out of respect for us, don't use it.
Oh yeah.
You know what I'm saying? You know, so that might be part of the pushback, because remember, look at the generational conflict, because you know, I can't remember his name, Bill Cosby, excuse me. Bill Cosby got on Eddie Murphy, remember? He got on Eddie Murphy from using the word, cursing and using the N-word. He got on Richard Pryor. So I mean, this is not a conversation that hasn't happened before. And then so one of the older brothers said this, and Paul, I want you to respond to this. He said, using the N word is like identifying yourself like the devil. The devil has a meaning. Can the devil, has a meaning with historically and culturally? Can the devil ever be redeemed as something good? And I was like, interesting. So he said that's how you look at the N word.
I disagree on that because again, you're using fear. You're using fear like religion. Like if you don't go to church, you go to hell. Or it's fear factor that if you equate the word devil with the N word, you're gonna make people not use it. What's it gonna do? It's gonna total opposite. You're gonna have people use it more to rebel against that ideology of if if I'm afraid to use this word, they're gonna use it.
Well, it's
Just to
not
fight
even
it
from a
against.
religious context, Ishmael. I'm just talking about from
Yeah,
generally the narrative of what devil means, right?
yeah.
And I think so. Here's so I'm gonna put it this way. I don't think you can change the meaning of the devil from something bad to good, but here's why. When you bring up the devil, regardless of how we try to spin it, it's in a religious context. So if we're looking in a religious context and bringing up the devil, then in that case, and specifically that case, I don't think you can change what God has already done. So when you're looking at it from a biblical standpoint, God has already set that in motion, and God said that was bad. You can't change it. Now, in this case, this is a man-made word. It's a man-made construction. And because it's a man-made construction, I feel like, yeah, you can change it. Now, going back to your point before, speaking about the older generation, I'm glad you brought that up. I remember, first and foremost, a lot of people want us to get over this whole racism thing. And whether they are white, black, whatever, there's a lot of people who really do share that sentiment in society. And they'll tell you, slavery was so long ago, racism, blase, blase, blase. Now, with that said, I'm 38. My mother sat in the back of a classroom because she's black.
Mm-hmm.
So I am the product of someone who lived through segregation. My great grandmother, remember, before she passed away a couple of years ago, she still believed the institution, the community college, which isn't too far from my house, was still racist and segregated, right? Her mother, my great grandmother in Texas, I sat down with her and I picked her brain about this very topic. And what was interesting to me was she said the name calling she could deal with. It was the physical contact that she didn't tolerate. And when she said it, it resonated with me for two reasons. One, she endured the name calling. Now, when I tell you my great grandmother, she picked cotton. She grew up in Texas, right? So if she was still alive, she would be like 100 and probably like 105, 106, which means there's people alive today that still pick cotton.
Yeah.
And not only did she say that it was the words that didn't bother her, but the physical contact, it reminds me of what you just said about being on the bus. And people, yeah, they were saying the N-word, but it wasn't the N-word that had people shook. It was the fact that they had sticks and they were willing to get physically violent with folks. And I would never, ever, I could never dismiss what you or anyone else is going through in that experience. And I can never pretend to be in those shoes. But Ishmael said it before with this generation. And as a teacher, I remind people we have to be cognizant of the fact that this generation is so far removed from that kind of racism. And when I say this generation, I don't mean everybody, because I tell my kids now, there are still schools in the South that have segregated proms. Yeah. New York City is one of the most segregated school districts in the country, right? So, and it's intentionally segregated. This is not something that's done by accident. Yeah. And so this younger generation, they're not accustomed to white folks or folks calling them the N-word. They don't even pick up on the subtleties and the subtle cues of racism most of the time. And so, and it's a double-edged sword. On one hand, it's good because they're moving in a way where they are not colorblind, but they're more inclusive. But on the other hand, it's bad because they won't see it coming and they can legitimately be blindsided by bigotry and racism.